What if the first indications of dementia were not a loss of memory at all? What if they were concealed within your mood swings, the way you walk, or even your reaction to an easy question? Today, close to 7 million Americans have dementia, and over 60% never even realize that they experienced the initial signs. That is because dementia almost never starts with losing names or getting lost. It usually begins much more insidiously. Researchers now believe the condition can quietly emerge even 20 years before a real diagnosis. That is 2 decades of quiet changes in the brain, while life otherwise feels perfectly normal. In 2020, research in Alzheimer's and dementia indicated that some small changes in behavior had the ability to forecast cognitive deterioration with almost 88% accuracy. What that means is millions of individuals are walking around with early dementia signals in mind and body, and are not even aware of it. The issue is, the signs are typically written off as stress, aging, or simply being a bad day. Meanwhile, deep within, brain cells are dying, brain volume is decreasing, and inflammation is growing in important areas like the hippocampus. But 99% of individuals don't even notice these warning signs, just because the earliest signs don't necessarily feel like brain problems. Today in this video, we're going to reveal 11 early dementia signs you might be missing daily, listed from least to most deadly. Stay with me because the number one indicator isn't just ignored, it is now scientifically linked to early dementia and heart failure, and not heeding it could increase your risk by over 57%. Amazingly, hardly anyone is discussing it. By the end of this video, you'll precisely know what to look for in yourself or a loved one, so you can act before it is too late. Before we start, tell us where you are listening from. Leave your city or country in the comments below. We read and respond to all of them. Now, let's proceed with number 11. Number 11. Impulsive behavior or poor judgment. It usually starts small. Perhaps you tip unusually high without even knowing it. Perhaps you trust strangers too easily. Or perhaps you start blowing money on useless things, gadgets, subscriptions, or random impulse purchases you don't need. They're not so bad at first, but far down in the brain something else is taking place. The frontal lobes, the parts that govern judgment and self-restraint, are some of the first to be hit by neurodegeneration. When they lose mass or connectivity, your brain's capacity to keep decisions in check diminishes, causing bizarre or dangerous decisions. Indeed, a 2020 study in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience followed 1,300 adults over 5 years and discovered that those who demonstrated poor monetary judgment were 72% more likely subsequently to develop dementia. At first, these actions may seem harmless. You might think you're being generous, spontaneous, or lighthearted. But when lapses become a consistent pattern, they can signal the brain's early warning system, and notably, this often appears before any memory issues at all. Number 10. Backing away from social activities. Perhaps you used to love talking with neighbors, attending group classes, or phoning friends on weekends. But now it is simpler to just remain at home. You may convince yourself you are exhausted or just not in the mood, but frequently, the underlying reason goes deeper. Dementia affects more than just memory. It destroys motivation, emotional sensitivity, and language. As the brain labors to keep up with conversations, understand jokes, or come up with the right words, socializing becomes dismaying, even humiliating. To spare themselves that distress, many individuals gradually start to pull away unwittingly. A 2021 study in the Lancet Healthy Longevity listed social withdrawal as one of the most prevalent early indicators of dementia, more specific than even mild memory problems. Actually, socially isolated adults were seen to have a 1.6 times increased risk of developing dementia in only 4 years. And what makes withdrawal so challenging is that it doesn't necessarily appear obvious from the outside. You may still go out occasionally, but you cease to participate entirely. You hear less, you say less, and gradually your universe narrows. That is not necessarily sadness or introversion. It might be your mind just keeping up. Number 9. Gradual change of vision or depth perception. If you've noticed yourself bumping into furniture more often, spilling drinks, or struggling to judge distances while driving or parking, don't dismiss it. These may look like simple coordination or age-related problems, but in many cases, they are early warning signs of visuospatial dysfunction triggered by brain changes. The areas of the brain responsible for processing vision and spatial awareness, especially the occipital and parietal lobes, can begin to deteriorate long before memory loss appears. That is, your eyes might be seeing properly, but your brain is getting mixed signals, and normal tasks become harder to do. A 2019 neurology study that followed almost 2,000 individuals and found that individuals with declining visuospatial abilities had a 65% greater chance of developing dementia in 3 years despite normal memory tests. These little slips may be your earliest warning. Perhaps you skip a step, bump into something, or feel off balance in a new place. The trick is how frequent it becomes. When these problems keep happening without reason, it may be that your brain is losing its visual processing ability. Number 8. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. You've been preparing the same recipe for years, but today, you look over the instructions several times. You've traveled the same road thousands of times, but today, you go the wrong way at a turn. You sit down to pay some bills and get distracted midway through. These are not instances of forgetting. These are disturbances in your capacity to plan, sequence, and execute activities that previously were automatic. This warning sign comes from the frontal and parietal lobes, which oversee complicated operations such as preparing food, operating a car, or managing money. It is not just about memory, it is about the way your brain structures and performs activity. A 2020 Journal of the American Geriatric Society study revealed that individuals who were having difficulty with multi-step daily tasks were at a 53% increased risk of developing dementia from mild cognitive impairment within 2 years. You can catch it when you suddenly can't remember how to operate the television remote control you've always used or are baffled in the middle of a tooth-brushing session. These episodes aren't laziness. They're early warning signs that the brain's circuits are becoming less efficient. Number 7. Language issues or having trouble with word finding. You are talking with someone and all of a sudden can't remember the word refrigerator. You find yourself pointing and saying, "the cold thing." You may try to make light of it, but instinctively, you feel something is amiss. This isn't normal forgetfulness. It is a fault in the language system of the brain. The left temporal lobe, responsible for naming and remembering words, can also start to deteriorate early in dementia. The illness generally begins with what is called anomic aphasia, the inability to access the correct word even when you distinctly know it. It is as if the word is lodged on the tip of your tongue, but refuses to be spoken. A 2018 study published in Brain and Language followed adults with mild word finding difficulties and discovered they were nearly 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease within 6 years compared to those without such issues. That's how strongly predictive this symptom can be. The threat occurs when it becomes habitual. You can start replacing words, employing vague words such as thing or stuff to a greater degree. You can start sidestepping more profound conversations or just be quieter. This is not about personality. It is about neurological alteration. Number 6. Increasing anxiety or restlessness. You might feel on edge, wound up, or painfully self-conscious in situations that once never bothered you. Maybe it is a shopping trip to the supermarket, dining at a noisy restaurant, or just being alone for an extended time. This heightened feeling of fear is usually dismissed as stress or hypersensitivity. But in the brain, something much more profound is occurring. Early onset dementia often strikes the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, 2 areas that deal with fear, emotional response, and decision-making. As their link gets weaker, the brain starts responding excessively to common stimuli. Common events become too much, and minor problems cause disproportionate emotional overreactions. You might be pacing, drumming your fingers, or needing to escape situations early without even knowing why. A 2020 research in the American Journal of Psychiatry found that new onset anxiety, particularly when paired with mild memory loss, was associated with a 96% increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease over 3 years. That is almost double the risk. The danger of this is how easily it gets rationalized. You might think you are just stressed, going through a tough time, or just aging, but when this nagging worry feels inexplicable and keeps building, it is time to pay attention. It is not only in your head, it is in your brain, and it is not random. Number 5. Difficulty interpreting visual information or reading. This sign is the most likely to catch you off guard. You sit down to read the newspaper, and suddenly the words seem more difficult to comprehend. Your eyes are good, your glasses are good, but your mind seems sluggish. You catch yourself reading the same line over and over or losing your place. Street signs, maps, or even subtitles on television start to seem more difficult to understand. This is not due to the eyes at all, but rather to how the brain processes what the eyes take in. Areas such as the posterior cortex, particularly the angular gyrus, start shrinking, and it becomes more difficult to translate visual input, even when vision itself is normal. A big 2020 JAMA neurology study tracked more than 10,000 older adults and found that participants with difficulty with reading comprehension and visual interpretation had a 49% increased risk of developing signs of early-stage dementia in 4 years. Even worse, most participants didn't report memory loss, just frustration with reading or visual attention. If a friend of yours used to love books, puzzles, or picture games and now shuns them or says they can't concentrate, that is not exhaustion. That could be the beginning of the brain losing its capacity to process and read visual information. Number 4. Forgetting personal grooming or hygiene. You once showered daily. You chose matching garments, styled your hair, brushed your teeth, and perhaps even used a favorite perfume or cologne. Nowadays, you forget, or it doesn't seem worth it, or you promise yourself that you will get to it later, but never manage to. This is not laziness, and it is not straightforward depression. It is the derailment of the brain's executive function system, the network that handles motivation, attention, and task completion. As dementia starts to affect parts of the brain like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, initiating daily routines becomes much harder. What used to feel automatic now feels confusing, tedious, or even irrelevant. A 2017 Journal of Alzheimer's Disease study monitored early-stage dementia patients and saw that 83% started showing neglect of grooming in the first year, even if their memory was still largely normal. And it is not always going to be dramatic. It might start with wearing the same shirt for a few days, missing a shower, or missing deodorant. The key is the change in pattern. When a person who used to be concerned about their appearance suddenly starts ignoring simple grooming, it is a thinking warning sign, not a personality shift. Number 3. Repeating yourself during conversations. You share a story with your friend, and 5 minutes later, you share it again. You repeat the same question to your spouse twice throughout dinner. You call your daughter and remind her of a holiday plan that you discussed the previous night. Others may guy it when you repeat yourself, but the repetitions become increasingly difficult to avoid and increasingly difficult to stop. This is a form of repetition that is due to injury to the hippocampus, the short-term memory center of the brain. When neurons in this area start dying or becoming disconnections, the brain has trouble with storing and retrieving new info. You might recall your childhood in great detail, but not have the foggiest recollection of what occurred this morning. A 2018 article in Neurobiology of Aging discovered that individuals who habitually told the same stories or asked the same questions without even knowing they were doing so were over 5 times more likely to have been diagnosed with dementia within 2 years. This is one of the strongest predictive associations made in behavioral dementia research. The risk is in its ease of being normalized. Family members may simply say, "Oh, you already told me," and let it go. The individual might feel embarrassed, but not realize what is occurring. However, when frequency and consistency of repetition set in, it is a sure sign that the brain is having difficulty encoding new memories. Number 2, forgetting what day it is, what month it is, or what season. You get up and don't remember what day it is. You believe it is Monday, but it is Thursday. You can't remember the month. Or you wear a sweater when the outside temperature is 90 degrees. These are not merely symptoms of being preoccupied. They are a failure of one of the brain's most critical orientation systems, temporal awareness. The brain is dependent on a system known as the default mode network, especially regions such as the posterior cingulate cortex, to enable us to think our way through time. This allows us to put ourselves in the past, present, and future. Once it starts to deteriorate, you lose your internal calendar, your sense of time, and even the normal order of events. A 2020 study in the Journal of Gerontology discovered that older people who became consistently disoriented about time had a 62% greater likelihood of advancing to moderate dementia over 18 months. This is different from simply forgetting an appointment here and there. It is a more profound confusion with time itself. You might feel like hours have gone by when they have only been minutes, or think something occurred yesterday when it was really 2 weeks ago. Disorientation is disconcerting, and it becomes hazardous when accompanied by missed medications, appointments, or lost safety protocols. Number 1. Subtle changes in walking, gait disturbance. One of the most unexpected and telling first warning signs of dementia. How you walk. Perhaps your pace slows down. Perhaps you drag one foot ever so slightly. Swing one arm less, or your stride shortens. Perhaps your gait stiffens or seems mechanical. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel dramatic. But it is altering. And your brain is why. Walking is not merely a matter of muscles and joints. It is a brain activity of the entire body. It depends on the cerebellum for coordination, basal ganglia for rhythm and initiation of movement, motor cortex for fine-tuning, and particularly the frontal lobes for planning and sequencing. As dementia starts to impact these brain areas, especially the frontal subcortical circuits, the manner in which you move about in space starts to disintegrate. Not weakness. It is disconnection. In 2022, scientists writing in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease reports studied over 16,000 older adults and found that individuals with slower walking speeds and deviated step rhythms were over 2 times more likely to develop dementia over the following 4 years. Even more concerning, a 2021 study in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience found that early changes in gait not only predicted dementia risk, but also cardiovascular decline, particularly heart failure, with unprecedented accuracy. People who exhibited visible gait disruptions had a 57% greater chance of being diagnosed with heart failure in the future, even before they exhibited any heart-related symptoms. In short, your gait may be telling a secret tale penned by both your brain and your heart, and most people don't even realize it. This is why neurologists now consider subtle changes in walking, slowing, imbalance, or hesitation to be a major red flag for early dementia. It is one of the only outward symptoms that can in fact be recorded on video, noticed without having to take a memory test, and followed along with over time. But because it does not appear to be associated with the mind, most families ignore it. They just think that it is arthritis, plain old age, or insufficient exercise. But if a loved one starts walking differently, albeit slightly, and this is new to them, it may be the body's first call for help. And now you have seen it, the 11 early warning signs of dementia that people ignore every day, from how you speak to how you walk, from how you prepare for a day to how you process emotion. These changes may be small, but in the brain, they can represent vast change. The most alarming aspect is that some of these symptoms may present 10 to 20 years prior to a formal dementia diagnosis. That means they are not only warning signs, opportunities to identify the condition early on, to slow its development, and to intervene via lifestyle, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and mental stimulation. These are the instruments we still possess when the disease is in its nascent stage. But awareness is the very first step. That is what this video is all about, empowering you to know the hidden signs before it is too late. Now we'd like to know from you. Have you or a loved one noticed one or more of these early signs? Did someone brush them off, believing it was normal aging? Share your experience in the comments below. You never know who you can help just by sharing your voice. And tell us which sign surprised you the most. Was it the walking, the vision changes, or the repeating stories? If this video opened your eyes, please like it and share it with someone who should see it. You may just be saving a life or a mind. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, because learning about your brain is the very first step in safeguarding it. Thanks for watching.